Dad, there's someone to see you. It's Chris.
Hello, Professor. Mind if we come in?
Didn't take you long to get down here. I'm just inserting the library tape you phoned me about.
Excellent. Oh, Professor, Joe, this is Marina. Marina, Professor McLean, and Joe.
I'd like her.
Good. There you are, Marina. I told you Professor McLean could help us improve the randomizer. Where is our brand new Mark II randomizer, by the way?
Is this it, Dad?
This is it.
Aha! What's that, Marina? No, we did not just paint Mark II on the old randomizer. I mean, that's not all we've done. No, it may look the same on the outside, but from now on the insides are going to function completely differently.
How does it work?
Well, Joe, I haven't the faintest idea, but let me ask you a question. How many UFO episodes has the randomizer selected so far?
That's easy. None.
Precisely. No UFO, no Space 1999, no Fireball XL5, no Terrorhawks, and yet we've had 2 supercars, 2 Stingrays and 2 Joe 90s in the first 9 selections. It's not really been as random as I was hoping. So your father has very kindly agreed to install a brand new selection processor in the randomizer to redress the balance, and hopefully this week we might just land on an episode from a series we've not yet seen. So if you'd like to press the button, Joe, we can find out whether or not the new processor has indeed taken. Oh, by the way, Joe, Jamie Anderson told me to tell you that he is a huge fan of yours and he would absolutely love to interview you on his podcast someday.
Smashing!
Yes. OK, Marina, what does the printout say? Oh. Well, thank you very much, Professor. It looks like the new processor is a success. We have indeed landed on a series that we've not yet seen on the randomizer, and it's our very first live-action episode.
Well, Chris, as far as I'm concerned, it's just a dream come true.
Yes. It's Space 1999, Journey to Where? Well, here we are with our very first live-action episode on the randomizer, and this is going to be, I think, a pretty interesting one to talk about, because this episode is one of the few from the second series that seemingly everybody is okay with. They're not... The second series comes in for a lot of criticism, as I'm sure everybody knows. This episode... It seems to be almost universally loved. Even people who are fans of Space 1999 and who don't really like the second season have a lot of time for this one. A couple of years ago, I put together a video, my top 5 favourite and least favourite episodes of Space 1999 Series 2. I left this one off the best list. I think it just missed out on a space in the top 5. And a lot of people said, where was this episode? So it's clear there's love out there for it, and I remember it being pretty good. Let's see if it still holds up.
Don't know, but it's no random transmission. They're calling us.
As indicated by the words calling Moonbase Alpha, they might just be calling us. We're Moonbase Alpha. What a coincidence.
This is Space Station 1, Texas City, planet Earth. I repeat...
Now this episode is fairly important to the evolution of the show, because this is, as far as I remember, the first indication that Earth even survived the moon breaking out of orbit. There was a couple of mentions through the first season that, for all they knew, the Earth may no longer exist. Now this episode introduces a couple of new characters to the series, Dr. Ben Vincent and Yasko. And it's kind of an indication of the slightly cynical thinking that was going on behind the scenes, which Martin Landau has mentioned a couple of times. The whole no one will notice thing when things change suddenly for no reason. After episode 3, 2 cast members, 2 people who had been regular cast members on the first season, Xenia Merton and Anton Phillips, both left the show. Now... we need to replace those roles, even though in the second series they're largely just there to press buttons or deliver occasional bits of exposition. And the decision was made, and I think this episode kind of clearly shows that it was a genuine, calculated decision, to replace those 2 characters with characters who physically are almost exactly the same. You have Dr. Ben Vincent replacing Dr. Matthias, both black men with afros, and you have Yasko replacing Sandra, who both of whom are black-haired Oriental women. And it's definitely a step down, I think. Jeffrey Kassoon is a really good actor, but I never quite got on with Ben Vincent because he seemed a bit of a git, and Yasko, well, there's a wonderful shot in this where a passing extra just taps her on the shoulder, and she reacts as if she's suddenly forgotten where she is, who she is, how to speak, how to move. She's an odd one. And I look at her and think, you know, maybe you're doing your best, but I just wish Xenia Merton was still here. I wish you guys had had made better use of your old guard. It's a shame that some of them were put into a position where they felt they had to leave.
Wowee! Hey!
Don't kiss me, Tony. You have not shaved today. And this episode introduces another running theme for the second season: Tony Vedeshi's beer brewing antics. If this was meant as humour, if this was meant as a running joke, even if this was meant as character development, it's dreadful. Maybe as a one-off mention in one episode, one scene like this, it would be fine, but they come back to it over and over again throughout the series, and it is just a comedy graveyard. This is another example of the slightly childish humour of the second series. Maya's just drunk Tony's beer and turned into Mr. Hyde. And it's a fairly cheap-looking Hyde costume as well, which makes the whole thing more cringy, but
Do you know your problem, Tony?
it leads to this wonderful moment between Tony and Maya.
Prejudiced.
Me prejudiced? Just because you look funny, come from the planet Psychon, and turn into an eel the last time I put my arms around you?
Prejudice.
That's not prejudice.
What is it then?
Fascination. Now, come on.
It had been hinted at in earlier episodes that Tony and Maya had a thing for each other, but this scene, I think, is really the first one to definitely sell that idea. You can definitely see why Maya would fall for Tony, and Maya herself is just so playful and so silly, but at the end of that scene when he reminds her that they're all going home and she just looks so heartbroken, it's one of the reasons I definitely have Maya as my favourite female Jerry Anderson character, I think, because there's so much warmth and so much sparkle to her, but there's this underlying vulnerability as well. Freddie Jones is here along with Isla Blair, both of whom have fairly questionable American accents, but Freddie Jones has also a bizarre line in Head Tilts. Now here we're getting our first look of Texas City as seen on the screen in Command Center, and it's always struck me as odd that the Alphans aren't horrified by seeing what's happened to their former world. A, because it's a barren wasteland covered with protective domes, but B, because those protective domes are clearly powered by what look to be disco lights.
Cities are fantastic.
No, they're not. I've just told you they're not. Now, this is an odd way to bring up the fact that Earth is now more or less a devastated world, because they're blaming it on pollution, not the fact that the moon was ripped out of orbit, not the fact that there was probably a massive
nature.
nuclear fallout.
Who needs nature?
Why are you toasting this? You people are weird. I'm not an expert on science or medicine or anything, and I think anyone who's looking to bring hard science into Space 1999 is definitely onto a losing thing, but I'm not entirely convinced about this whole clamping a wristwatch monitor to a test package thing to test the effect of the transfers effects on the Alphans. The arrival of the test package on Earth is I'm looking at this in quite a nice scene, because even though I said that Freddie Jones and Isla Blair aren't necessarily 100% on the accents, the test package has just arrived and they've spent like 15 seconds smiling and grinning and clapping and looking at each other, and it's all so genuine, as indeed is that shot of Command Center with them all celebrating, all except for Maya, who is sat in the background trying to be happy for everybody, but you know she's just, as we find out in later episodes, she would rather not go and live a life on Earth when she's an alien.
You said 3, didn't they?
You told me heroes were fools who had a talent for nothing else.
Yeah, that's right, honey, I'm a talentless fool. Go me.
Let Alpha be my long-lost past.
Now, there was obviously a definite shift in the second series towards making these characters feel more real, hence the whole Tony's beer brewing, hence the whole Tony Meyer, John and Helena romance things. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I think the only time where the softening of these characters always genuinely worked was with Alan Carter. Nick Tate, no matter what he was given, even if it was obvious drivel, he could make it so charming and so real. And I loved Alan Carter in the first series anyway, but in the second series, he's such a nice guy to be around. Which is why it's a shame he's not in all the episodes of the second series like he was in the first series. So now John, Helena and Alan have been displaced. Their projection, transmission, whatever, to Texas City has been thrown off by the earthquake thingy. And now we find ourselves in Black Park, behind Pinewood Studios. This is again an element of the second series where they scored over the first series in that they did more location filming. It was almost always Black Park, but they only did location filming in one episode of the first season. That was Full Circle. So it is nice to see them go to alien planets in the second series and have it be a real, actual place. It's not just a studio set, even though, as we say, it is Black Park. Black Park is a lovely looking place.
Computer's acting up.
Stay on it. Logan here.
Isla Blair is doing some sterling prop handling work in the background here, manipulating various pieces of plastic into other pieces of plastic.
Not sure we can detonate.
Pretending it's her computer. It is quite sad, but it's a sort of testament to the kind of actors that they would get on this show, who had to make business like this look decent.
Normal except for Dr. Russell's temperature. It's rising.
Rising? Probably means infection.
Or she's really hot. You're not a real doctor, are you? You're no Dr. Matthias, that's for sure. So now we have Koenig, Helena and Alan walking through the forests of Black Park, being watched by mysterious figures from the bushes. I don't think it's any spoiler to say that they are on Earth, but they've been thrown back in time, which makes this one of the few, very few, Jerry Anderson episodes to include time travel. And you'd think, for being one of the biggest names in British science fiction, his work would have touched on time travel more, but it's very rare that he did. We have certain episodes in which time is used to reset things when everything's gone to custard. Matter of Life and Death, War Games, or even those are kind of questionable. It could just be some other kind of reset rather than time travel. Obviously we have UFO's Time Lash, which more plays around with time-related concepts than features actual time travel. The only time travel episodes really that I can think of are 1875 from Fireball XL5, My Kingdom for Azif from Terrorhawks, which also included a couple of, for lack of a better term, timey-wimey related episodes with Lord Tempo, Time to Kill in Space Precinct. But again, that wasn't really going into history, that was just going back to the start of the episode and making sure that things didn't go wrong. So really, we only have, unless I'm wrong, 3 going back into history episodes in any of his shows. Obviously, we can discount Four Feather Falls as that was already set in the past. So it's just this, My Kingdom for Azif, and 1875, which is quite odd. Now, Texas City have decided, along with the help of Maya, that the only way to solve the effects of the explosion is to create more explosions. Not sure of the science of that, but it seems a very Jerry Anderson way to solve a problem. And now we're back to Isla Blair playing with her pieces of plastic. This poor woman is doing such a great job. And of course, she had a fairly thankless guest role in the first season as well, when she was playing an alien in War Games. She was just given a bald cap and stuck in a cabinet for a whole episode. I'm not sure. I think she may be the only returning guest actor from the first season. I'm sure I'm wrong. There must be someone else. But...
We still have time to send some of you back down to Earth. Anybody wants to try it?
I'm only extending this offer to the 5 people in this room, I mean, screw the other 300 people on the base, you 5 are the ones who are going to get this offer.
I'd rather stay on Alpha than end up somewhere in space.
Oh, that's one of those moments where you can see what Xenia Merton would have done with it, and it... Oh, I don't want to say anything bad about Yuzuko Nagazumi, but I will say that Yasuko is no replacement for Sandra by any means.
It's a moon.
It's a moon, Helena, but it's not our moon. This planet can have 6 or 7.
I do like the idea as well that the way they find out that they've been thrown back in time is by seeing the moon up there. In any other show, that would be... It would function in the same way, that it would be a symbol that they're back on Earth. But for this show, the moon is obviously such a personal thing for them because it is now their home. It's a shame in a way that they've chosen this whole distant past thing for the time travel element, because it would be interesting if they'd instead chosen something relating more to the premise of the series. If someone had been thrown back to just before the moon left, if they had like the choice, say it was Maya thrown back in time to before the breakaway, and she had the option of preventing the whole thing from happening, keeping the moon in orbit, keeping all those millions who inevitably died after the moon left orbit from dying, at the cost of her own future with them, because if the moon never left orbit, she would never have been picked up when Psychon exploded. That would have been interesting. And I do like this, the medieval setting for this one as well. I think they do a good job with it, but it... As the only time travel episode that the show did, I'm not convinced they made the best use of the idea. I think it's a solid B+ effort. It's nothing bad. I just think, maybe for what should be a landmark episode, this doesn't necessarily feel as important as it should.
But there's one thing I still don't understand.
What the hell accent am I trying to do? I think it's supposed to be Scottish, but I seem to be coming out as slightly Cornish, slightly Welsh.
30 minutes before the eclipse begins.
Freddie Jones now looks like he's appearing on a chat show. He's just sat down in his chair like he's waiting for his next guest. Now, Koenig and company are about to be burned alive for having the plague. And in this scene we can see a couple of sort of stereotypical medieval type tropes. Aside from the burning, we also have Terry Walsh is hanging around as a chappie with a sword, who you may know as being a regular stuntman on Doctor Who. I think he turned up a couple of times on this as well as an Alphan. But we also have just a cackling old crone who does nothing except hunch over and screech a lot, which is quite fun. And she's just been given 2 torches and she looks so happy. It's like, yes, I am the Torch Queen. Now, the way that Koenig and Co get out of this is they've established that they are somewhere 25 years after the Battle of Bannockburn. And it's not really precise enough that you could ever imagine them being able to be rescued just with that information. But luckily, Koenig knows his Morse code and he's tapping that out on Helena's little wrist monitor. And here we have a sci-fi staple, seen a couple of times in Jerry Anderson shows, where we're confronted with Morse code.
Does that mean anything to you?
Just some sort of...
And nobody understands it. But in this case...
Does anybody get that? Wait a minute.
We have this guy.
It's the old Morse code.
Who has been hanging around in the background throughout this whole episode. Not a regular extra, not a member of the regular cast, and he's just stepped in to save the day at the last minute. Thank you, bald guy who has no place in this show, for just saving the day.
Goodbye, Texas City.
And like I said earlier, for discovering that Earth survived the breakaway, for Alpha's first contact with Earth since then, this doesn't feel as epic an event as it should. And you can imagine if the series was remade today, this would be like a 3-parter. This would be like a huge mid-season epic thing. But instead it's just like, okay, we're done with that. Now back to Tony's beer-brewing antics. Thank goodness we kept those around.
You're not giving up, Tony, are you?
Oh, no. He's just going back to the drawing board.
Pilots.
I love that, whatever it is that Nick Tate did at the end of that line, though, that strange, smug head tilt thing. I do like... Oh, I can't not like Alan Carter. Even when the show's at its silliest, I still love Alan Carter.
A history like that. Who wants to go back to Earth anyway?
Well, it's got to be better than your current situation. But, alas, no time to discuss that. We've reached the end of Journey to Where, which, yeah, I can definitely see why a lot of people like this one. It's a shame, like I said, that we never really went to the time travel well too many times, and there's more they could have done with this. But for what it is, it's definitely an above-average episode of the second season. I still don't think it's quite top 5 material, but definitely one of the better episodes of the second season. Toodaloo!